Hello everyone, welcome to week 2 of Digital 3D Studio. This is the first class of the week and we're going to be finishing up our Cupcake today. So just more exploration of our poly modeling tools. And let's jump right back into it. And first look at a cupcake reference again. So we want to tidy up the cake part a bit. And that cup area, we left it a little bit sharp. And then today we're just going to be adding in the frosting. So open up your Blender file. I'm going to put mine full screen. So again, you can see we have a hole left in our cake and then our cup is looking a little bit chonky. So we're going to use a few more of our poly modeling tools to clean that up. So first for the cupcake cake, it's a really simple fix. We're just going to hit tab to go into our edit mode, and then I want to select this bottom ring of vertices. So again, there's multiple ways of selecting. I'm going to do a loop select, so that's Alt left click on a edge that's connecting the vertices you want. And then we just have a hotkey we're going to hit to fill this hole, and that's F. F for fill or F for face. And it creates a face at the bottom of the cupcake. And then if I hit tab, you might notice now it kind of looks like it's floating UFO. So I'm just going to do a few more alterations just to tidy that up a bit. And first thing is I might add one more edge loop so I have more vertices to work with. So there's a more gradual shift going down there. So our knife tool, again, loop cut. If I click on that, it's automatically giving me a guide of where to put it. If I left click, I can then do any alterations I may need. So if I need more cuts, but I'm just going to leave it at 1. And then I want to scale it up a little bit. And I'm just doing this again to make this more of a gradual curve down meeting the cup. So I'm going to scale this up a bit, so hit S. I don't want my soft selection on, so you can see it's influencing everything, so I'm going to hit escape really quick. Make sure soft selection's off by hitting O. And now I could go back in, S for scale. I don't want it to scale in the Z axis, so Shift Z. I'm going to enlarge it a little bit and then probably move it down along that Z axis. So G for grab and then Z. There we go. And then one last thing is when I was doing my soft selections throughout the cupcake, I wasn't really paying attention to whether or not this bottom row of vertices were staying even. So you can see they're kind of like jagged going up and down, and I want them relatively flat so they can meet the top of this cup part nicely. So let's grab this row. So again, we could do loop select, Alt left click, and then to make sure they're all lined up on the same plane, I'm going to do it with scale. So S, and then I want to scale them in Z. And you might notice as I move them further or closer to a center point, they can line up. And the easiest way to make sure they line up is then hit 0. So now they're all on the same plane. And you could go in, this edge might still be a little bit too sharp, you could go in and fix that, but now I'm going to move on to my cup. So I want to make these faces not be so distracting, just so obvious. And then I want to smooth out these edges a little bit. So I'm going to be using bevel. If you hit tab, you have a bevel option over here in your toolbar, but you also have a bevel modifier. So again, the modifiers are going to be affecting that entire model. In this case, I don't want every single edge to be beveled. So let's just hit it really quick to show you what would happen. So this is beveling my entire object, and I only want my outer zigzag. So I'm going to be using the bevel in edit mode. So hit tab to get into edit mode, and I want to select all of these vertical edges. You can go through, do shift and alt and left click to grab all of those edges. I'm going to do it another way of selection. So if I do edge mode, so up here, up left corner, we've been doing vertex mode. I'm going to go into edge mode. You can see if I hold down alt and left click, it does something similar to when we were in vertex mode. Same with if I hit shift, it's that same sort of selection. But if I also hold down alt, so I'm going to hold down alt, shift, and control. And you can see it's doing this loop select in the other direction. So I'm just going to go down my cupcake. And then again, my Mac users, alt is your command key. So shift, control, and alt or command. And now I have all of those edges selected. And then I can hit my bevel tool. Once you click it, you're going to have this little line with the little like yellow knob coming out. And if you move it around strategically, you can see it's starting to shift some faces. So we don't only want a gradual bevel, so I'm going to just find the sweet spot and see around this area. So I'll probably want it cut like that much. When I let go, that option screen's popping up in the bottom left corner. And here I can make a few more changes. I can change this offset I just did, so that was me toggling that yellow knob around. I can also increase the amount of edges that are going to be splitting up this bevel. So if I want it a little bit more smooth, I'm probably going to keep mine up to, alright, 3 looks kind of nice. I'll do 3. And then profile is one more area you might want to change, and you can see that changes the direction of the bevel. So I'm going to leave mine at about where it started. And then if I go into hit tab really quick just to show you, in object mode, you can see it smoothed out those corners a little bit more, but you can still see the faces. So this is where we'd want to do our type of shading, which is just right clicking on the object, and we want to shade it smooth. So one more area that we probably want to bevel is this very bottom line where the cupcake's meeting the table. So I'm going to hit tab, go back into edit mode, and I want to loop select this whole bottom line. You might notice your cupcake doing this weird shading down here. That's because of the Ngon not liking all of these vertices in geometry, but it's fine because it's the bottom and we're not going to see it. So let's do a loop select. So again, alt, left click. And this time I'm going to use the hotkey to use bevel. So all these tools on the left side, if you just hover over them for a little bit, you can see a shortcut option show up. So once you become more fluent using Blender, you can try using some of the hotkeys instead, just to be a little bit more efficient. So for bevel, you can see if I hit Control B, and right away that yellow toggle like jumps to my cursor. So instead of me hitting it, going in, grabbing the toggle and moving it, it's automatically jumping to my mouse. So again, Control B for bevel. And now I can start moving it around. I can also use my scroll wheel to change how many segments it's adding. So in the previous one, when we just hit the button, that option showed up after we created the bevel. In this one, we can do it live while we're creating it. So I think I'll do like that amount. And when you left click to finalize it, your options come up again. So in case you want to change anything, you could go back in there. But now, let's go back to object mode, and you can see we have a nice, smooth cupcake cup. So now let's move on to making our frosting. So for the frosting, I'm going to do this style on the left. I couldn't find a better photo of one. I guess there's this one right here, but we're going to pretend there's like blueberries or something on top. So I'm just going to have this smooth frosting effect. Blenda, blenda. There you are. Okay. And again, there's going to be multiple ways to make any object we make in Blender. And there's going to be multiple approaches. This one, I'm going to do a tool called extrude. So inset and extrude, just to show you the extrude tool, which is going to be really handy for you guys for future techniques. But if you think there's a different, easier way to do this, feel free to do that as well. So here we go. I'm going to be using a cylinder. So some of you might look at that and think it's more like spherical. I'm going to do a cylinder that I'm going to bevel and then tear it up with the extrude tool. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. So first let's add our cylinder. So Shift A, cylinder, and we gotta shrink down that radius. And I'm just gonna eyeball it to see like how much frosting I want. So if you just scroll this around, it's gonna jump the radius segments on like a larger scale. If I want it a smaller scale, I can hold down Shift. So if I shift and drag this, it's more gradual rather than jumping between units. So I think that's a good amount. And then we don't need this to be so tall, so let's shrink that down. What's a good layer? Probably that. And then vertices, these seem fine. Again, we don't need it to be completely smooth because we'll add subdivision surfaces. And then n-gons will be fine for the frosting. So first thing I want to do is just to move this on top of my cupcake. So we're going to do the move transformation, so G. And then I only want to move up and down, so Z. And for now, I'm just going to have it like floating there. And we're done. Perfect frosting. So I want to have a second tier on my frosting. Let's go into edit mode. So tab, and there's two more tools you guys are going to learn this class. So inset and then extrude. If I hit inset, nothing will happen because I didn't select my face yet. So right now I forgot to select my face. I still have the entire object selected, so let me undo just to make sure I didn't cause any weirdness. So again, tab. I only want to do this face, so I need to select this face. So extrude and inset, it might be one occasion where you're using face mode rather than vertex mode, which we've been using up to this point. So again, you can change those up here. And I'm just going to select that top face. And now if I click inset and toggle my yellow shift, and I'll do it about there just so there's like a nice difference between those two layers. And now I'm going to use extrude. So I can click extrude and then I can pull up on that toggle. Again, you can also be using the hotkeys, which will make your workflow a little bit more efficient. But if you're not comfortable yet, you can feel free to use these buttons as well. So now that we have that, that doesn't look like frosting at all. So we want to go in, smooth out these edges and these faces. So we're going to use bevel again. And this time I want to select probably these 3 faces. Or edges, sorry. So I'm going to do vertex mode just because it's my favorite. Loop selecting, but holding down shift so I can grab all of those, and that's not going to work because it's going to grab those, so I guess I have to do edge mode. You can tell like what is actually being selected by what's being highlighted in yellow. So that's why I didn't want to choose this, it's because it has all of that highlighted. So let's just do loop select with edge mode, and there we go. So now again we can do the bevel by either hitting it or hitting Control B, and then this little toggle will come up and nothing will happen. There we go. You have to find the like sweet spot of it moving. And I want this one to be pretty big because I want that to be like a rounded, more like tube cylindrical surface. And then you can use that scroll wheel so it looks more like an inner tube. And I think I'll do it about there. And right away I'm probably going to change this to my smooth shading. So in object mode, right click, shade smooth. And it's looking a little bit more organic. Right now it looks like a blow up top hat. So we have to change that. What? Wrong object. We want the frosting. Oh, and we should label it. So cupcake frosting. And now I'm just going to move some of these edges around and add a little bit of definition. So this inner tube, like, action's happening just because it's averaging between a few points. So I want to add one more edge there to give it some sharpness. So let's go in. Actually, you'll probably see this better if I have my subdivision modifier on already. So remember we did this for our cupcake cake. So the cake part, we added this subdivision just to smooth it out. So let's put one on our frosting just to clean up these sharp edges. And one looks pretty good to me. Let's just see what 2 looks like. Okay, so that's what the render view is going to look like, which is acceptable. So now you can really see that this is like merging down, and we want it to be a little bit more sharp of a transition. so it looks like it was squeezed out on top and not like melting into each other. So let's go in and add a loop cut. You could do the same thing with this. You can use the hotkey or you can hit the button. Let's hit Z. So wait, first grab and then Z to move it down, just to make a little bit sharper of an edge. And I probably actually want this to come inward as well, so it has like that nice lip. So let's scale it, not in Z, Control Z. Now let's look at it in object mode. There you go, now you have like a nice little layer. And then the last step for this would be going through and using your soft selection just so that this is laying a little bit more naturally. So go back into edit mode, turn on vertex mode, turn on soft selection or proportional editing. Make sure I have my select tool selected. There are multiple like different select tools. If you go up here and you hit W, you can see I'm toggling between various kinds. So we have the box select, we have like a, just like a more specific selection, which we have been using. And then this one is nice. If you just like hold down your left click, it's like a drag select, like a paintbrush kind of select. But for this, I'm just going to use this one. It's a precise select, and then I can start going in, grabbing, and start mushing my frosting. Again, you can change the scale of that proportion by using your scroll wheel. Sorry, my cat's been like zooming around. That's why I keep like looking away. And I'm just going to try to make it lay a little bit more naturally. Same with the top layer of the frosting. You want it to kind of like press into that bottom layer at some points, just so it's not completely perfect. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's see how that's looking. So it still needs a little bit more shifting around, but you can see like that extreme more divot is looking rather nice. And then the one important one I want to do with this is at the top. We want to make this go downward a little bit because like look, right now it's like a little flat and that looks awkward, but I want it to go inward, and then if we place something on top, it would look like it's sagging from like blueberries, or you can make a cherry, an Oreo. So if I go into my edit mode, I don't really have vertices to do that proportional selection with to make it curve inward, so I need to add some more. And we already used this tool. This is the inset tool. So if I grab that face and then hit our inset tool, toggle it inward, and I'm just gonna like continue those subdivisions in a few more times. And then I'll probably just do one more. What? So I'm dragging that toggle, letting go when I'm satisfied, just grabbing it again, moving it, and letting go to finalize. So now I can actually go back into my vertex selection, do G for grab, and I can start sinking this in a little bit. How's that looking? Oh, I still need to make the where it meets the cupcake a little bit more saggy. You might notice whenever you work with spheres or anything that has a lot of vertices meeting up in a point irregularly, so anything that isn't just like these polygons, it's going to add a little bit of imperfections in your mesh. So that's what's going on right here. It's going to be fine with this because we're going to be putting your assignment for next class will be just to put something on top of our frosting. So again, you could do a cherry, which would probably be using soft selection, your extrude tool. You can add blueberries, which would probably just be your basic transformations, or an Oreo. So anything simple like that, and then if you place that on there for more tasteful cupcake action. Okay, and last thing that we're doing today is we're just going to group up all of our cupcake objects now that we're finished with it. So rather than having to select each of these if we ever want to move this around, just to make sure we have everything moving with each other, we want to group them together. So I'm going to create a parent. So whenever I hit the cup and move it, everything will follow it with the exact transformations that I'm doing. So if I select my frosting, hold down Shift, then select the cake, and then select the cup, and then do Control P, so P for parent. If I do Object Keep Transform with that menu that comes up, you can see it's setting parent. Now, in my outliner, it's only listing the cupcake cup, but you can see that there's 2 more objects beneath it. So I can go in, grab that cup, and now it'll keep all of those objects as one. So that's all I wanted to cover today. It's a quick day. Just to see a few more of those polygon tools you'll be working with frequently. So extrude, inset, or loop cut. Mastering are different ways of doing selections. Knowing when to add a cut. So I added in that cut into this mesh just so I could keep that sharper lip going down. And again, we just used our subdivision modifier on this. Oh, and I didn't say bevel. Bevel's nice to make more soft edges. So next class, we'll actually start using even more tools and start on a new object. So I'll see you guys next time.